This past week, the UK's Online Safety Act came into effect, so now the regulator can go and enforce those laws and regulations for being in violation against companies, right? So this goes against broad types of content. This wasn't just simply about pornographic content, but this is also about self-harm, suicide, and then also dangerous challenges, all this broad range of content. And then unsurprisingly, we've seen a lot of platforms, in order to avoid the stiff penalties, which was 10% of global revenue, since it's largely going to be American firms that are getting targeted here, that's the kind of penalties they're facing. So they're asking for IDs from people before they access certain types of content. And it's a lot broader than just the kinds of things I outlined there before. So whether it's your X account to go and look at content there, or even your Spotify account, if you want to go listen to some of your favorite songs now, maybe because they might have some explicit language in it, you're going to be required to show ID. YouTube, you might be required to show ID to watch videos. So it's just a classic case of government overreach and the consequence of this kind of overly broad approach that the UK has taken.
How does the UK have the jurisdiction to tell an American company this is what you can, just because somebody in the UK may see it? Why do they have that authority over a place stateside?
Well, at the end of the day, they're a company that's offering services to United Kingdom residents, right? So they are subject to the laws of that local jurisdiction. It's just that the problem ends up being is that those bad ideas get ported over to the rest of the world as well. And you know, unfortunately, like, the UK does not have a First Amendment like the United States has, right? So, like, those kinds of laws that have been done here in the United States have gotten held out by the courts, right? And unfortunately, the UK doesn't have that kind of a protection, right? Keir Starmer was trying to tell President Trump that they have a strong history of free speech in the UK, but that's just simply not true. They have a record of arresting 30 people a day for posting offensive things online, right? And according to recent reporting from Politico, their regulator was threatening Americans with jail time if they didn't comply with the Online Safety Act.
And that's important to mention because there is like this government-appointed, as you said, regulator. And when it comes to free speech, you can't report on certain aspects of the royal family for fear of their libel and slander laws out there. It is far more strict, you know. But why? So why are they veering into this now? Why at this point, when the internet's been around for 30, 40 years, why is this the moment that they think this is where we can change the game?
Yeah, I think it goes to show how powerful that underlying message was when they were pushing through a lot of this legislation. It was all about protecting children, and that is a completely laudable goal.
Absolutely right.
There's a lot of horrible content that's out there on the internet, I would say, that we don't want children to see. But this is why it's important to be very thoughtful about what are the solutions that you're bringing to the table, right? Because this hard age verification kind of approach that we're seeing, where users are being required to upload ID, they do not like it. Yeah. And it's not even close. So we're seeing them utilize VPNs. We've seen even my favorite community, the gaming community, start leveraging Death Stranding to go and use photo mode to use that character's image to get around age ID requirements, right? So people are getting very creative here, but it's not a surprise because they do not like this notion of a government, basically this nanny state, watching over everything they're saying online, and mother may I to go and access the internet the way that we did before.
So there are parallels drawn between this and efforts to pass the Kids Online Safety Act on Capitol Hill. Different laws, certainly a different concept and different implementation, but the goal seems to be very common.
Yeah, absolutely. The Kids Online Safety Act here in the United States was certainly inspired by the efforts in the United Kingdom, both with the Online Safety Act as well as the Age-Appropriate Design Code, and certainly looked to try to blend in certain elements of that. Now, they made changes to try to avoid some of those issues, but at the end of the day, because of the kinds of requirements that are getting put on companies, don't be surprised if that's what ends up coming to our shores here, right? So that's the kind of risk that you end up having.
We're just about out of time, but I wanted to ask, because in Virginia, there is a law. You mentioned about uploading ID. There are laws in place in Virginia that require that for certain websites. Ohio just adopted the same. You know, is that sort of an on-ramp to this sort of legislation?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that it's important to go and urge caution with those kinds of pieces of legislation, just because in every single state that's gone and done age verification, let's just say even in the limited context of pornography, where we don't want kids to see that, right? We've seen an immediate spike in usage of VPN services and people looking to basically circumvent those kinds of controls because, again, they do not want to. It's a classic case of stated versus revealed preferences. They do not want to go and give their ID over to the government to look at content that they otherwise want to.